Let's start with your definition of blue economy. When somebody says that, what does that mean to you?
We are literally surrounded. We live in the second smallest county in North Carolina. We're right on the coast. We only have 199 square miles of dry land. And to our east is the Atlantic Ocean, and to our west is the Cape Fear River, and to the north is the Northeast Cape Fear River, which basically defines this, almost an island, but certainly a peninsula that sticks down there and out into the Atlantic Ocean. And we're eroding. We're actually losing land mass, every year. I mean, not at a huge rate. So paying attention to water of all types, ocean and river, is huge. Also, we couple that with we get 80% of our drinking water in New Hanover County from the Cape Fear River, surface water, as well as the other essentially 20% coming from ground wells in one of two aquifers that we have beneath us for freshwater, the Castlehane Aquifer and the Beatty Aquifer. So everywhere you turn, let me add one more data point. We also are home to one of only two ports in the state of North Carolina, the Port of Wilmington, which is an international port and what we call a mid-sized port, but we continue to grow and prosper. North Carolina, as you can probably imagine, has a strong history in farming, agriculture, pork, chicken, also lumber or timber products as well, and it all flows down literally up until probably the mid 20th century to the 1950s. The Cape Fear River was a major transportation source for products coming down to the Port of Wilmington. Prior to that, for hundreds of years, that's where what people use. So water again as a transportation device, and then as we've grown and gotten more modern or more recreational, things like kayak routes, etc., in the many inlets, and we have the intercoastal waterway, which runs through our entire county, which is of course very popular for what we call snowbirds. People moving their yachts in expensive and not expensive boats, north, and then turn around and coming south. They pass right through New Hanover County. Our beach communities for a very long time were our major economic driver. We have Carolina Beach, Curie Beach, and Wrightsville Beach form our eastern coast of New Hanover County. They all have their own town and city governments as well, although the county government sits over all three of them. But it's an important factor. The beaches and the tourism that is driven by the coastal economy there is huge. And along the way, we had the great luck and foresight of people well before me who started with the Corps of Engineers over 50 years, I guess 54 years now, to have the first contract in the United States for beach nourishment or renourishment, putting sand on the beaches.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, the decades of different strategies on what to do for coastal communities, on how to protect it, we, along with the federal government through the Corps of Engineers, really invested heavily in making our beaches thick and broad and a strong dune line. In other words, going with a living or more of a natural beach. And meanwhile, there are investments north of us into jetties, what they call terminal groins, also seawalls, hardened structures, especially up in the Northeast, which over time have proven not to be the way to go. It can actually be more dangerous when those start coming apart. So now, we're proud of the fact that the Corps of Engineers is using what we call the Carolina Beach. That's one of our beaches template for other communities up and down the East Coast, as well as in the Caribbean, there on the Gulf Coast as well, because they recognize trying to work with Mother Nature, to put it crudely, is much better than trying to put a wall up and trying to stop it.
Yeah.
Some result is that when we were called Hurricane Alley for a reason, the way we jut out into the Atlantic Ocean, and when hurricanes come roaring up, which they do on a regular basis, you don't see Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach, or New Hanover County being torn apart. And it doesn't get a lot of press, but it's because we've created these huge energy decelerators by constantly on a 3 and 4 year schedule, renourishing our beaches. So that energy, I mean, it tears the crap out of them. There's no doubt. And, we'll lose, 30 feet of shoreline in there. But what it does in the meantime is it protects our businesses, our properties, and our lives all along New Hanover County. And so, we get, devastation, and wind inland really, tears down trees and rips up houses. But overall, we've done a great job with the Corps of Engineers and really protecting our county. I'll stop there. I'm sorry. You can. So yeah, that's
No,
how I would describe it.
that's fantastic, and I think it gave me a greater appreciation of all the kind of the valuable assets that the Wilmington area has. As you were kind of talking, and you hit on it a couple times around the economy. You talked about the beach economy in the community where there's homes and condos. You talked about the port and how it's growing. The blue economy has that second word, which is that growth, the economics. How do you define that?
I don't think we can escape the blue economy just because we are so invested in it already in where we live. Certainly, the port of Wilmington, as I said, is expanding and growing. Well, let me give you kind of the dark side of it as well, and you'll find it interesting. Well, one of the issues has been what they call the Panamax ships. The huge ships that you've seen, on the news, that can handle, tens of thousands of the different trailers that they put on top of there. Well, to make that happen, they need a deeper draft, and coming up the Cape Fear River from the Atlantic Ocean is about a 23 mile trip, and there are areas of that need dredging to be able to take the deep draft, in this case, to get down to 45 feet. But every time you dredge, you're letting more salt water come up, into that channel, as it were, and it has a negative impact on the sides of the channel. It's just bringing more and more. So the natural flow of the Cape Fear River has been disturbed over the years multiple times, as we've seen that economy at the port increase as we keep deeping it. And we're right now in the middle of a very controversial period where we're currently at 42 feet, and they want to drop it another 3 feet to get to that 45-foot draft. And they're, for the last time they did this was probably 18 years ago. And certainly the environmental awareness of what the downside of that is much more acute right now. And so the ports are seeing a considerable pushback from the community. I mean, everybody loves the port, and and they love the economic benefits of that, but they're trying to balance that between, we see our what a ghost forest is. It's along the banks, what once were flourishing trees. Well, the saltwater intrusion comes in and turns them into these white standing ghost forests.
Yeah.
And you can see it right here. I mean, the time that we've been here, we've only been here 24 years. And I can look out on the banks of the Cape Fear River, especially south of the port, and you can see the damage that it's done. I'm of split mind as I try, as an elected official, to try and balance this. I get it. Secondary issue also with the saltwater intrusion is what I mentioned before about the aquifers, which I consider a part of our economy. It's a huge part. We need fresh water, and we get it 20% or more from the aquifers. Part of the dredging process is too, and we know just by the own hydrology of it, we can see we are right on top of the, in this case, the Castle Hayne aquifer. If we pierce that and drag that open, we have now salt water coming in, which will turn it brackish, which will make it almost unusable. And that provides literally millions of gallons a day for us. So, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I got off on a kind of a tangent there on that one, but something you said
What is that trade space that's being discussed?
And I'll just kind of, kind of unpack this now. You probably have read some about it, is with the pollution of the Cape Fear River coming down from the north of us through a company called Chemours, and that's the PFAS. These are chemicals we call for, or the Gen X problem, which I know has gotten a lot of publicity and has affected us, because what it means essentially is that where we pull our water out, which is up at Bladen Bluffs or Kings Bluff, and pump the water, 20 some miles down to our water treatment plant, the Sweeney treatment plant. Our treatment plant can't touch those chemicals. And we found out, starting in 2017, that we had basically a 40-year history of Chemours, which is a spinoff of DuPont, of producing these and literally dumping it right into the Cape Fear River, using it as a sewer, and not paying attention, even though they knew there were issues with that. So there's a number of lawsuits you can imagine that are coming through us. But in the meantime, that means 80% of the water, which is supplied through the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority, and also in Brunswick County, which is our neighboring county, and Pender County, who draw water from there as well, affecting about 300,000 people, in Southeast North Carolina, has been drinking poisoned water. Of course, the lawyers would, be quick to say, you have no proof of that, Commissioner. And I said, well, yeah, we do actually. They just haven't, ruled on it at the federal level. But there's very strong evidence, I'll call it, of at least 4 different cancers that are caused by it. It does bad stuff to it. And they know it, and the lawsuits will do that. But it is really, I think, I would say hurt, but it's slowed economic progress. Imagine if you're a company that wants to move, and you want to move 100 employees to the Cape Fear region, to Wilmington. And one day one of those employees is going to move, comes and goes, hey, wait a minute, I just saw this article, and it says all the drinking water has got PFOA and PFOS and these things that I can't even pronounce their name, and they're all in it, and they can't get it out of it. I'm going to bring my young kids and my pregnant wife there. What up with that? So those kind of conversations that we actually never hear, but we know are going on. And there's great efforts by our Chamber of Commerce and by our economic developers, Wilmington Business Development, et cetera, that works for the county to try and overcome that. But that message is still there. Right. The good news is that we've made a huge investment through the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority of creating a massive GAC plant. It's a huge filtration plant using granulated activated carbon that will then run all of our water through that plant. And I mean, imagine 4 bays that are 20 foot deep by 40 foot wide by 60 foot long, and they're filled with this GAC material. And they run all the water through there, and they can show that it's like 97, almost complete. We'll strip it of that. Plus another part of it, back with water and drinking water, is that it will also strip out all the medicinal byproducts that come through, which nobody even likes to talk about because they don't even know what to do with it. It just is a secondary effect of this GAC. It will remove all the suite of PFAS chemicals, but also all the medicinal. So it's a real benefit, but it's costing the ratepayers to date $37 million. Final will probably be about 40 some $million, and that we're hopeful to recover through suing Chemours, which I am not hopeful, we will be able to do it. But it's going to take some time. So that's also an economic factor. But for me, it's an economic drag when we're out there recruiting other people and other families. Because I have a difficult time with a straight face talking to people who I come in contact with, who are sometimes touring or committing. We have a university here, University of North Carolina, right. Wilmington. And so I often see parents and stuff who are coming down. I always try and take a point and say, hey, this is a beautiful place. And we see it happen all the time where students come here, the parents come and visit a couple times for Easter vacation or parents' night, and all of a sudden they go, wow, you mean you can have winter where you're not under snow, and you can play golf almost 12 months out of the year. I mean, why can't we move here? And I go, well, I don't know. There's a whole lot of people who are doing that. But that water issue weighs heavily on my mind, and I, try to have a serious conversation. Say we've got a fix coming, but it doesn't do anything for the people who've lived here, over a 40-year period that have had that. And I think the negative consequences of that are still waiting to be fully told, I guess.
What do you envision, or what do you hope it to be?
Um, the success, my lens, of course, is through government and a lot dealing with economic development. But it is clear that the success that Wilmington has had, certainly over the last 30 years, is really through small business. And when you really start looking at the number of small businesses and more recently in the last 20 years, entrepreneurial businesses that have come down here and attracting it, we've got an absolutely gorgeous place to live. People move here to be by the ocean and to be by our climate and all that. So how can I live here and still make a living? And the entrepreneurial sector has continued to grow and blossom. Weirdly enough, as an offshoot of COVID, as people have become more and more comfortable doing what you and I are doing here, instead of talking on a telephone, we do a Zoom call. I can't tell you how many hours I spend a day on similar kind of things, but from a business standpoint, it means that you can do a greater percentage of your work from one place. So I see the growth and we are getting it, the growth in the entrepreneurial sector that's happening here, going out 15, 20 years. And we now have clusters of different types of industries that have come here that we will get together once a month or once a quarter up in Raleigh, for instance, and yet people, their employees can live here or in anywhere they want. So I think that I would like to see us grow even stronger in that. So there's more independence from people who are not necessarily tied to an office building or even an office for that matter. That we're going to see more and more of that. And I see Wilmington and New Hanover County perfectly positioned to support that kind of thing.
Is there enough of those kind of high paying jobs or small businesses, entrepreneurial, that are creating so that people can stay, or kids going to school and then leaving?
That is the topic. I don't go several hours in a day that I don't touch on that one thing. Because we have now 15,000 students at UNCW, and also Cape Fear Community College, which has another 5,000 that are there, and we're pumping them out like crazy. And the majority of them look to Raleigh or Charlotte or Richmond or Atlanta to do their careers. And we've worked really hard to try and expand the number of decent paying jobs and now higher paying jobs. Just at a very local and granular level, the county made the commitment almost 2 years ago to go to a $15 minimum wage. And I know our university, which employs a lot of people in our school system here, which is the school system's the second largest employer, has also done the same thing to try and kind of raise that issue. Hard to have a discussion about wages without talking about affordable housing, which also factors into it. And that's a major issue there. But I know at our last commission meeting, which was Monday, so what was that? Yesterday.
Yesterday. Yeah.
We approved an incentive program for a company that came to us, a software company who's existing here, and asked for some money to help them. They want to hire 104 new employees at an average salary of $80,000 per person. The clear goal is to create or to jumpstart those higher paying jobs, which of course we passed, and the city of Wilmington's also going to give them money too. But those are the kind of efforts that are at the forehead, there. I mean, in another time, another era, I would say, well, wait a minute, if they're so successful and they want to bring on 104 people, why they need my help? If they got a good product, let the market take care of itself. But I know just what is that, it doesn't quite happen organically, or certainly doesn't happen fast enough. And we got to stop this brain drain of talent that we have from our undergraduate and graduate schools from coming down here, living here, getting their education and packing up and moving away. How can we reverse this? We're also working with our major manufacturers here. We have GE has General Electric has a major plant here, aviation and nuclear. They build small nuclear reactors here. Also, Corning has a major manufacturing plant here too as well. We work with them to encourage bringing in higher paid jobs as well.
Does Wilmington Leadership, and I guess that would be like the chamber, do they benchmark or go talk to other cities that are having kind of been through this? What are kind of the 3 or 4 or 5 things that Wilmington kind of must do or focus on immediately?
To your point, yes, the chamber has been really good partners with our county and our city and sponsored a series of trips. So the community leaders, myself included, literally take field trips and go for a 2 and 3 day period down to other cities to an organized series of meetings with key leaders in other places, frankly, to ask just the question you did, is how did you guys do it? And what's going right and what's not going right? And it's been, those trips are wonderful. We've been down to Charleston, South Carolina, which Wilmington is often compared to as a kind of a smaller version of Charleston. Richmond, Virginia, it was another really interesting trip. Greenville, South Carolina, which if you know anything about is kind of a little bit of a mini rock star in economic development of what they've done down there, which has been great. But meeting with all of them, interesting enough, the Richmond one, which I grew up in Virginia, but I would visit Richmond, mainly with school trips to see the Capitol and all that. So I was stunned to go back, 30 years later to see what they've done there. So much of it has to do around, was it the James River, I guess it goes through there, and literally reversing their forward facing for businesses and their economic development and their tourist industry to where before the river kind of ran through the backyard and you never didn't focus anything on it. It was just considered a conveyance, a transportation, and frankly, a sewer. Well, they've stopped doing that, but now businesses are actually building and restoring their buildings to have a river-facing portion of it. And they now have a pedestrian walkway that goes across the James River, and they've added which was really happens every day, kayaking things. They have like a little rapids that goes through there, and it's like the cool thing to be able to go and take a kayak, on a Friday afternoon with your friends and stuff like that. And of course, all the mini breweries and stuff all around there. All of a sudden, taking that one asset they had and putting a focus on it. Richmond is like a cool place to be now. I was really surprised. Just one example, but going to those different areas and asking how they did it. The takeaway for New Hanover County and Wilmington, and actually Southeast North Carolina, was something that I'll call political alignment. The way they did it in Charleston, for instance. There they had a very strong mayor, Mayor Riley. He was a mayor for 35 years or something like that. They had a different system slightly, but a strong mayor form of government. And he fortunately was the right guy in the right place at the right time and really led Charleston, into what they are today. But with his guidance, Charleston, I think of it as like a pyramid or the point of an arrow is what they kept saying, through the chamber, the different business leaders, the different political leaders. They said there was a single voice that we would get behind. We would, sit down, sort out initiatives we want. And, going back 20 plus years, they said, we need a heavy manufacturing. We know where we want to do it. We're going out after them. They ended up getting BMW as well as Boeing, to come in. But they said it only worked because we had, key leaders up front, and we had our state delegation from the state legislature behind us. So when we are courting some of these larger companies like Boeing and stuff, one person was speaking with this army behind them, and they saw, wow, they're real. This is support, and we know if we come here and make that investment, in Charleston, that we'll be supported by all levels. Even though that's a really basic thing, it was like a aha moment for everybody on that trip, because we all think we're brilliant. We all think we got great ideas, and and all want to be out front, speechifying or taking credit for it. What they essentially said is, forget all that if you want to be successful. Figure out your strategy, put a point person there, and everybody else line up behind them. That's the way to pull in large economic drivers into your community, as well as to make successful strategies a reality.
It seems like this is, I mean, the urgency is here.
Yeah.
The area may not survive. It's flourishing now, but it may not survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly, I'll give you another example to kind of back up what you're saying here. Is that depending on who you talk to at NOAA, but Wilmington, our Wilmington in North Hanover County, is ground zero for sea level rise, and we see it because there are areas in our downtown area. And we have a battleship. The battleship North Carolina is parked on the Cape Fear River, and next to it has a parking lot to it. And we used to, if you go back 20 years ago, we would have, half a dozen, maybe 10 days of moderate, several inches of water, in that parking lot, just because it's so close to the Cape Fear River, the sea level. And now we see over 100 days of what we call sunny day flooding.
Wow.
Just to show you, and NOAA has the statistics to back this up. Yes, indeed, you are experiencing a sea level rise right there in our downtown area. We have one of the main streets that's right along the river is called Water Street. And everyone go, oh well, thinking back to the olden days with men in three-cornered hats and walking down, and oh, it's the port water. Yeah. It is water, literally. It's not quite as low as the parking lot over across the river that I explained, but there are easily 50 days a year where everything from ankle deep to mid thigh deep of water, especially on a king tide, or if we have, and of course, any kind of weather event, a northeast or something coming up and pushing water up there. So it's really real. We're experiencing it. And yet we have a legislature, and sorry, I'll go here only for a minute and then I'll back off. But when we try to identify it along the coastal areas, and this is on the coast of all of North Carolina there, and the scientists, the people who study this every day, said that we could experience by the end of the century, the end of the 21st century, sea level rise up to 36 inches, so 3 feet. They could not deal with that. And they said, my God, if we put that out there, every insurance company, every property, you're talking about losing millions of acres and property damage. So the legislature figured it out by saying, okay, you can only go maximum 30 years out. And that's the only science we'll believe, because we know those scientists, they're all wackies and they're all socialist lefties, and they're just trying to cause us trouble. My words, not theirs. But so that was a classic sticking your head in the sand approach to okay, why don't we start preparing for it? If you're talking about 80 years out, that's going to be a long time. None of us will be around. I get that, but we could certainly start making policies and starting to move, either retreat or build up or take, steps to deal with it. No, they don't want to hear about it. Only 30 years out. And then, they'll be out of office, of course, and it'd be somebody else's problem.
What is your greatest hope for the future?
That we see more people like you, and that we have more conversations at a higher level that we're having right here. So much, again, my lens through government is that I still naively enough believe that government can be a major tool in solving problems. And we've gotten so mired. If you just sit down and observe the environment around you and what's happening, and have a real conversation, knowing that we all are trying to do the best to leave, our bit of the world better than where we, came into it. For the next generation. Something as simple as that would be, my goal or my wish. And it starts again with movements that you're starting and a part of, that you're writing about, and to have these conversations. But right now, it is so difficult to even have these conversations without people literally, and I mean literally, walking out of the room. To me, that's crazy. So, in the perfect world, we could sit down and have this, have a cup of coffee, disagree on some stuff about how we're going to do it, and then go out to dinner and then start doing something about it. But right now, that's not the conversation that we're having.